Today, we'll be talking about 6 commonly asked Band 6 nurse interview questions. I would also be giving you the answers to this question based on years of experience on sitting on an interview panel. If you've been shortlisted and been invited to an interview and you're worried about what to prepare for your nurse Band 6 role, today we'll be going through some sample questions and answers to questions I believe would come out during a Band 6 nurse interview. I have other videos on my channel where I talk about setting up the perfect NHS profile or TRAC profile. In one of my videos, I've given you sample answers to my best supporting statement. So if you've not seen those videos, please go ahead and watch them. You can find them in my channel, and I would also pin them to these videos so you can have a look at other videos that would help you ensure that you're putting your best foot forward in getting your role in the NHS. This is a disclaimer. My answers and questions today are from years of experience of being on the interview panel. This is not the box stand in an interview, but from years of experience, I've been able to see that these sample questions are what we normally ask for this role when interviewing us. Make sure that you're using this as a guide to your interview preparation and not the gospel truth as to this is definitely what's going to come out. Each trust have their own sets of questions, but the questions that I will be going through today run along in similar comparison to questions that would be asked for a Band 6 role. Now that you've applied for your Band 6 role, that means you're ready to take on the next steps in furthering your career in the NHS. But there are so many things that are needed for you to become a Band 6 or a successful Band 6 employee within the NHS. There are different things that needs to be in place for you as a Band 6. Roles and responsibility for being a Band 5 is totally different from being a Band 6. So you need to ensure that you're ready to take on that role as a Band 6. I've listed out 5 skills and qualities that you need to have to become a successful Band 6 in the NHS. Before we get into the video, I wanted to just explain a bit about myself. I currently work in the NHS where I've been on interview panels. I've been on interview panels from Band 3 to Band 8. So I actually know what I'm talking about with regards to knowing what the interview panel are looking for as a perfect candidate for their role. This is not just from reading about it, this is from actually being part of the people that make the decisions as to the next staff that will be employed into that team. If this is something you would like to know, please continue on with this video, and I hope I'll be able to help you to securing your next role in the NHS. Before we get into the questions and answer, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to my channel. I would like you to please share this video with your colleagues and friends that you feel would benefit from the questions and answers in securing their next role in the NHS. The most common question that will be asked during your Band 6 role is, why did you apply for this role? This in most cases is just an icebreaker to just get you comfortable and knowing if you actually know the reason as to why you applied for the role. When you're answering this question, you need to talk about your career goals. You need to explain to them the next steps in moving your career from coming from a Band 5 to a Band 6. You need to let them know about your aspiration. You need to let them know about your passion for nursing. You need to let them know about why you're actually applying for the role. So it's about confidence. You need to show confidence that you're ready for that next step, because with Band 6 roles, it's all about leadership and management. Going away from Band 5s where you still have people telling you what to do. Now as a Band 6 employee, you are the one telling people what to do. So you need to show confidence that you're ready to take on that mantle, you're ready to take on that next step in being the decision maker, in being the one that is leading the team, in being the one that is in charge of a unit or a department when your Band 7s are not around. So it's about aspiration. You need to talk about what was said during your last appraisal. You need to explain how much you're passionate about nursing, how much you want to further your career in nursing. Hence the reason why when you saw the role advertised on TRAC or on NHSJOBS, you felt that that was the next step. You also need to talk about, if you have a mentor, what you've been advised by your mentor as to where you're actually meant to be seeing yourself. You talk about where you see yourself. You can have a 5-year career goal. I see myself as this, and this is the next step for me to get to that next level. It's about talking and bigging up yourself and showing that you're ready for that next step. The next question would be, What do you understand about the role? What do you think you'll be doing as a band 6? This question is really asking you, have you read the job description and the person specification? The answer to this question is in the job description and the person specification. So you need to ensure that you've read the job description and person specification from top to bottom. This will test your knowledge as to understanding what the role of a band 6 would entail in that department. If you look at the advert for this role, it gives you a job summary and overview as to what will be expected in the role. So this is what they're asking you. What do you think you'll be doing? So what they're asking you really is, have you read the job description? Are you sure that you can perform this role? Give us examples of how you feel you would be able to do this job. So you need to show that you've read it from top to bottom and give examples. If you can pick out one or two things that was said in the job description to just highlight the fact that you actually know what you're actually going to be doing as your role. And if you can even also give a scenario-based example or something that has happened previously in your role as a band 5 that you could bring into doing this role as a band 6, elevating your responsibilities from a band 5 to a band 6. That is what they are really asking you. How will you make this better? How are you able to perform this role? Remember, when you're answering all questions relating to a band 6, you need to think about yourself being currently in that role. So you're answering in an authoritative manner. If I was given this role, this is what I'm going to do. As a band 6, this is what I'm going to be doing. That is what they really want to hear. They want to really hear your confidence and your passion about coming into that role. In most interviews, there's always going to be scenario-based questions because of the kind of role that you're applying for. As a band 6, it's a day-to-day changing things happening every day. One day is never going to be the same as yesterday. So what you experience in today's shift might be totally different from what would happen in the next shift. So you need to be able to be ready and be prepared. So next sets of questions would then start asking you about what will you do in this situation. So the next question can be, the next set of questions can be, how would you run a shift? So what they are looking for in this question is time management, your leadership skills, your managerial skills of duty, delegation skills. How would you delegate to your subordinates? How will you manage shifts? What we really want to know about is your day, a day in the life of a nurse as a band 6. So from once you get into work in the morning to when you leave. So you're going to talk about how you're going to allocate shifts, how you're going to make sure that everyone is doing what they need to do, how you're going to allocate breaks, how you're going to ensure that all checks are being done, how you're going to do your handover as well. So everything from once you start your shift that morning to when you hand over to your next colleague that comes to take over from the next shift. So this is what they really want to know. How would you manage that day? How would you make sure that everything runs smoothly? How would you manage conflicts that happens during that day? How would you manage any issues that come up or anything that comes up during that shift? They really want to know your decision-making skills during this day, your management, time management, and proactiveness in managing whatever comes up. So this, I would always suggest for you to put us in a scenario of what has happened in a previous role that you've done. So even though you've not even managed a shift as a band 5, we still want to see how you would do it, assuming you were in charge of that shift. So a scenario-based answer would always be preferable in answering this question. The next question that might come up during an interview is, how would you manage a staff that is not listening or doesn't do as instructed? Or how would you manage a staff that doesn't do the work that you've assigned to them? This is showing your leadership and managerial skills. They need to know how you're going to manage conflict, how you're going to manage insubordinate staff during a shift. Because in some situation, you might be the staff on ward on that day, or you might even have a band 7 there helping you, but they want to see your managerial skill. They want to see your leadership qualities coming out during this question. So you need to ensure that you're answering it properly. What this answer really needs about your leadership skills, your managerial skills, your communication skills, which is very important as well, to ensure that you're communicating rightly to the staff that is not listening. And also your teaching and mentoring skills as well need to come into place during this answer. You need to explain consequences of not doing the task that has been assigned to that person, communicating how it affects not just you as the leader of the team on that day, but the patient as well that where they are meant to be serving, the issues that might arise as a reason for them not doing the assigned task, depending on how many staff that you also have in hand. I would always say to people, ensure that you're putting a scenario or explaining or giving us an example of how this has happened in the past and how you're going to rectify it. Put yourself in that situation of how do you think I would like the shifts to run on that day? How do I think I'm doing what I've asked them to do? In a very good way, not in an angry or shouty way, just ensuring that you're talking to them, your communication skills is in the most professional level. And in situations when they don't do what has been assigned to them, let them know the consequences. So giving them the good and the bad at the same time, ensuring that they understand you, and always going back to check that they've actually done the task that you've assigned them to do. Another good question that might come up during your interview as a Band 6 nurse is, how do you manage a difficult patient or a difficult family member? This is always a regular question during interviews for a Band 6, because this talks about your conflict resolution, your leadership skills, your communication skills, and effective management of your word during the day. So they need to know how you're going to de-escalate things. They need to understand how you're going to manage people. They need to be able to also know how you're going to ensure that everyone feels heard, because in most cases it's a situation where the patient or the family member don't feel heard or don't be seen. They feel they've been neglected and they need to get their points across, which in most cases is always in a shouting and aggressive manner. You need to show you are able to de-escalate situation, be empathetic towards what they're going through, and see things from their point of view to ensure that you are answering them in a polite and a very reasonable manner, taking them out of that situation and putting them in your shoes to explain to them how the next step will go, that they see things from your point of view. In this kind of situation as well, you would also want to know, how do you de-escalate? How do you do your reporting? How you relate to your superiors if it's a situation that is getting out of hand. So we want to see all these different attributes of how you're going to manage that situation. The sixth question that we're going to be talking about today is, how do you support a struggling staff? Or how do you support someone that is a slow learner or someone that is slow during a shift? What the manager wants to know is, because you're going to be a Band 6, you are in that more clinical, you should have more clinical expertise. So you need to be able to show that you are able to support younger or newer nurses that have just recently qualified. Remember that you will be in charge of healthcare assistants, Band 5s and Band 4s. So you need to show that you have that authority and you have that clinical expertise. So this is about your mentorship, communication skills. This is about making sure that they understand their roles and responsibilities during that shift. Well, what we need to hear in this answer is all this: your communication skills, your mentorship skills, your teaching skills, and as I said, give a scenario of how you've helped someone in the past to overcome whatever difficulties they were having during that shift. It doesn't necessarily mean that you already have to be a Band 6. You need to show that you're ready to take on that role. How would I do it if I was a Band 6? How would I want someone to teach me if I was a Band 5? So this is what we really want to hear during this answer. Scenario-based answers are the best. It shows your understanding of what is actually expected of you and shows yourself being in that situation and tackling that situation head on. This is a bonus question that comes out during a Band 6 nurse interview. What is clinical governance? Clinical governance is essentially a framework that ensures NHS organization and their staff are accountable for continuously improving the quality of patient care. It emphasizes responsibility and accountability, ensuring that all aspects of patient care are consistently evaluated and improved upon. clinical governance has 7 principles. These are education and training, clinical audit, clinical effectiveness, staff management, risk management, patient and public involvement, and information management. In the context of clinical governance, clinical effectiveness, clinical audit, and risk management are essential components that ensure high patient. We'll be looking at 3 of the examples of the pillars of clinical governance during your interview. You would need to just explain at least 3 of them, 2 if possible, 3 better, so the interviewer knows that you actually understand what clinical governance is. In this sample answer, I'll be looking at 3 different pillars of clinical governance. The first one we'll be looking at is clinical effectiveness. You would answer this one by saying, I would apply clinical effectiveness by ensuring that all clinical practices are based on the best available evidence. This means staying up to date with the latest research and integrating evidence-based guidelines into practice to improve patient outcomes. I'll be explaining is risk management. I will focus on identifying potential risks to patients, safety, and implementing strategies to mitigate them. This involves fostering a culture of safety where staff are encouraged to report incidents and near misses, allowing us to learn and improve continuously. The third one we'll be talking about is the clinical audits. I would conduct regular clinical audits to assess the quality of care provided and identify areas for improvement. By systematically reviewing practices and outcomes, we can ensure that any deviations from standard are addressed promptly. I hope this has given you a flavor as to how best to answer the question on clinical governance, which sometimes do come up during a Band 6 nurse interview. I really do hope you found this video very helpful in helping you to prepare for your nurse Band 6 role interview.